Life with music. So, how I got involved with the project, the reason that I wanted to get involved in the project is simply because you asked me, Mitzi. Um, I mean, you,
Wait a minute. So I have to first introduce the podcast. All right, that's the first thing that has to do. This is Beyond, right? That's what they tell us to do. So don't start talking until I
I will.
introduce you.
Okay,
Okay.
that makes sense. It did seem a little weird that I just started like that. Oh, hi, hi.
No. Let me see. What do I do? Um, uh, Shoot. Okay, so I'll just have to edit that out. Let me start. Let me. What do I do? I'm not going to end the broadcast.
No, 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 it wasn't. It wasn't that bad.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
Okay, so it's
oh,
not giving me. It's like once you pause, you can't go back.
that's right. Once you
I'm trying
started,
to learn. Okay, so this is
no
what.
turning back. Yeah, I had
Okay,
decided to follow Jesus. No
this
turning back.
this is what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to. I think. Okay, I haven't had this happen before. Let me see. How do I go forward? Let me see. I just paused it. No, I don't want to end the broadcast. Okay, wait a minute. Not yet. Okay, there's the not yet. All right, so let's go.
Already and not yet.
Okay, you said that while I was
Realize
recording.
eschatology
So
here.
you're giving me more to be more. You're giving me more to edit out. Okay, so I'm gonna get a lot of practice. Okay, this welcome everyone. This is Beyond the Womanist Classroom Podcast, episode 6. And my guest today is Dr. Michael Newheart. Dr. Newhart was my first biblical interpretation, biblical studies professor at Howard University School of Religion of at Howard
Yeah.
University Divinity School.
Oh,
Excuse me.
oh. And now technically, when it was Howard University School of Divinity, yeah, I mean, it went through lots of different names.
Okay. So I'm not entirely incorrect. Okay. So yeah, so excuse me, I'm trying not to laugh here. So Dr. Newhart and I just finished submitting a manuscript entitled "We Are All Witnesses: Disruptive," and this is disruptive this morning, and creative biblical interpretation.
Toward, don't forget the toward.
Yes, toward disruptive and not critical, but it is critical toward disruptive and creative biblical interpretation. We hope that that book will be published either towards the end of this year or early next year. And so Dr. Newhart is here to talk with us about his experience with the book, his provide his testimony, and share with you samples of his creativity. Thank you, Dr. Newhart, for being here.
Well, thank you, Dr. Smith, and I'm just well, if you're going to introduce me or if you're going to speak to me as Dr. Newhart, then I'm going to
Okay,
speak.
Michael. This is Michael Newhart.
Indeed, indeed, we went through this kind of exchange practically every time we every time we got together on Zoom, or that is that you know, she would call me Dr. Newhart, and then I said, well, if you're going to call me Dr. Newhart, then I'll call you Dr. Smith, and then she would say, you would Michael, and I would say, Mitzi. So anyway, how I got involved is, and let me just ask you, should I talk as if I'm just talking to you, or as if I'm talking to the TV land?
Yes, as if
Okay,
you're talking to me.
okay, got it.
Conversation and they are listening in.
Right. Okay, okay. So I think the reason that I got involved is simply you asked me. And I was at the time I was working sorta on a book. I did not have a contract for that book. I'd been, I had a fellowship with the book and was at Pendle Hill, the Quaker Conference and Study Center, and was kind of stuck. It was a book on spiritual warfare, and I was just stuck with it. I mean, stuck in terms of not getting in anywhere. It certainly was a project that I decided on. Nobody was, had assigned it to me. But I just wasn't going anywhere, and was really feeling frustrated. I was in Madison, Wisconsin, and I just was finishing an interim pastorate, which had been very successful. And so I was kind of looking around for my next project. Well, I really ought to finish up this spiritual warfare thing, but just wasn't getting it for me. So you wrote and said, you'd like a co-author, and I wanted to make clear, well, are you asking me? and so and you said yes, and so I agreed. And so it's the best thing professionally. I don't know about best thing, but anyway, certainly, I count our writing the book together as one of the highlights of my professional life. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. I felt that I really did in that book kind of what I'm, about. That is combining the critical and the creative. That is, we wrote poems, and I included some of my artwork, and also, included the exegesis, the hard-headed, hard-headed exegesis. So it was fun, and we working together. Certainly it was difficult at times, but it was it came out well. I thought. I felt really proud about it, and since we turned it in August 1st, there's just been there's been a relief, but also a feeling of, we did it. And that, both of us were working hard on it, particularly in the last, several weeks. We were working really hard on it, and emailing one another every other hour. So I just felt good. I felt good about it. I felt good about the project.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Dr. Newheart. Yes, it was. I'm very proud of it too. The process, having you as a creative partner in this process, given that I first learned biblical interpretation from you. I first learned the importance of literary context from you, and creativity. I mean, I was somewhat taken aback when I first entered your class, but as I processed, as I journeyed, finding my own voice and way, I've appreciated what I learned from you more and more, and really tried to teach my students the importance of reading a text in its literary context. And in this process, you have, by writing your poetry and doing your art, inspired me to do something I hadn't done for a long time, which is write a poem. And so, so I thank you for that. And now, I'm on another book, and I can't resist writing a poem.
I want to warn you. Now, you need to be careful, because you're going to make me cry.
Oh.
I was chatting with your former Howard colleague, Valerie Cooper, and she was saying all these wonderful things about me, and I said, stop, you're going to make me cry. And but she didn't. She didn't stop. uh, uh, uh. And so, yeah, I said, well, what you're saying, for some reason, what you're saying here is getting a little blurry. Can you, can you write more clearly? Anyway, so,
Yes.
that
So
was,
share with me, had you thought about the Bible? Share with us,
oh,
had
yeah.
you thought about the Bible as testimony before? If so, how did that evolve? Give us some examples of how you see the Bible as testimony and how it intersects with your own testimony.
Yeah. I don't think it was not uppermost in my mind,
Mhm.
this idea of the Bible as testimony. I think that you kind of brought the idea to me, and it just kind of caught fire in my mind, or in my mind, not not anywhere else. Um, and fortunately, didn't have to call, 911 to put out the fire. But anyway, this idea of testimony and witness. Um, now I can't open up the Bible without seeing it there. But this idea that religious experience is at the ground of of the Bible. That is that people are speaking out of their own experience with God. Whether you're talking about Paul or Jesus or we started. Oh, I say this. That is that we started. I think doing the Bible, the whole Bible. We quickly found that that was maybe just a little bit too much. Also, you and I are both New Testament scholars, and so we decided to stick uh, to the New Testament, which I think was a good decision. Though I I realized that I was a little disappointed because I had done all this at least thinking and writing in my Bible about testimony or witness. I mean, I just open up a place at random in my Bible, and here I've written witness or testimony or W with a circle in it or T. That's right. I did actually go through the New Testament and write T with a circle around it. I felt that was So am I supposed to get on the tube here or something like that? What am I doing? Oh, no, this means testimony, or the T.
Yes, that could be something else in a different context at a different time, right?
And that's right. And I've read somewhere context is everything. I've read that somewhere. I don't know where. Um, so that that this idea of testimony, I think, is important. My own testimony is that I grew up in the church that is the church that is a church, Second Baptist Church in Liberty, Missouri. I was born in Independence and raised at Liberty, as I say in the book, and so uh, I was grew up at Second Baptist Church in just outside of Kansas City, and so you know. You went forward at a Billy Graham crusade. The buses will wait, and by God, they did. They did wait for me here. I was there at the crusade. In at the Municipal Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri. This is where my dad had taken me to see the Kansas City A's baseball team play. And so here I was there. I was there on the pitcher's mound, so to speak, giving my heart to Jesus. And so I was crying, I was, so we were, praying, and, I was crying, and people thought I was having this, religious experience, but really I was afraid that the bus was going to leave me. Oh, anyway, true story. So okay, so I grew up at Second Baptist Church, which was just down the street, and literally, 3 blocks from the college. William Jewell College, which is where I went to study and to teach. Um, and this idea of head and heart, I think what really grabbed me about this idea of witness is it does bring together head and heart, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that Howard Thurman does. Howard Thurman was the patron saint at Howard University School of Divinity. Well, when I
Mm-hmm.
was there, I'm sure that that's still the case now. But so so I really I was attracted to this idea of the Bible as testimony, that the testimony of the community, in the community of the beloved disciple, or the Markan community, or the Pauline community, or whatever we learned in graduate school to talk about the community. To tell you what, I remember a paper. It's a paper in at a scholarly meeting. Somebody was presenting on Mark and the baptism, and so during the question and answer, someone said, "So what does this have to do with the Markan community?" And so the speaker said, "I really don't believe in the Markan community." And you know, what you don't believe in? I mean, if he'd said, "I don't believe in God," people say, "Oh, well, who cares?" But I don't believe in the marketing community. Oh my gosh, stones, and take this guy out and throw him off a cliff or whatever. But anyway, so but the community, what communities I'm part of is an important part of my testimony. That is, I grew up among Southern Baptists. Indeed, I have, what, 4 degrees, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 degrees from Southern Baptist institutions. Indeed, my MDiv and PhD is from the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. And so, I've served as a Southern Baptist missionary, taught in Southern Baptist schools. But, that's my testimony. But, right now I'm, out of that community. Thank God, among American Baptists, and serving as, an interim pastor in various churches. Just finished up an interim in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes, you retired from Howard, right, a few years ago.
yeah,
Yes, and
yeah,
then doing pastoring and
yes,
so forth. Yes, yes.
that's right, that's right.
So, uh, could you share a little bit about your chapter on Revelation? I
Yeah,
thought
yeah,
that was such a powerful sobering. So this is, don't give them too much because the book is
that's
coming, but
right, that's
enough
right. Just a
enough
snippet.
so you go and buy the book when it comes
That's
out
right, that's right,
from
that's right,
Cascade Books.
that's right.
Yes.
Cascade Books. That's right. Coming soon. Yes, yes. Call now to order your copy of. It's Cascade Books, not Cascade Detergent. Cascade Books. So I want that to be very, very clear. You know, I'm on my calendar. I had, submit manuscript to Cascade, parentheses, in order to clean it, or something like that. So, okay. So,
They may want to
I,
clean it up when they read some of what we wrote, right?
I, yeah, I needed some cleaning. Now, Mitzi, you asked a question, and I started playing with it. So,
Yes, yes.
Revelation. Oh, the
You got the
Revelation.
revelation, yes.
No, yeah, I mean, you open up the book of Revelation, and wow, what a book. And boy, if someone's on drugs, boy, this is, this that's bad stuff, man. That's bad stuff. But uh,
I wonder what the drag of the day was.
right, that's right. That's right. So, but anyway, this book is rooted in religious experience. This guy John. And it's very interesting that there are all kinds of Johns in the New Testament. I'm talking not talking about porta potties, but All kind, John the Baptist, John the son of Zebedee, etc. And the only one, um, to actually, the only one to actually write a book of the New Testament is John of Patmos. He was. He was on Patmos because of the word of God and the testimony of Jesus. Um, Traditionally it said that he was exiled there. And or maybe he was just on vacay or something like that. No, um,
Sleeping it off, right?
that's right. That's right. Exactly. Exactly. But he was obviously apart from his people, and experiencing this alienation and feeling that there was this horrible tribulation that was going to happen. And so out of that, he writes Revelation, out of his own sense of alienation, uh, his alienation from his people, and to some way alienation from God. And so he has these visions, of dragons and beasts and and all kinds of weird stuff. Man, it was a bad trip, man. So excuse me. Yeah, man, this is get a little water here. So John, John of Patmos, or John the Revelator, as he's sometimes called, which is an interesting word. John. So John the Revelator gets on the elevator and
Was that intentional?
so anyway, um, but he does has these heavenly visions, and so there in chapter one, the first 8 verses here, he's kind of preparing himself. Let me grab my Bible here. He's kind of preparing himself. Um, well, wow, I turned right to it. How about that? Wow. The revelation of Jesus Christ, and the apocalypse of Jesus Christ. The revealing, the unveiling. So we have, so Jesus Christ. Well, what's really interesting, I mean, what kind of is it? That is it the revelation which has Jesus as its content, or is it the revelation, the apocalypse that belongs to Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's both, but you know, whoever however it is, God has given God, well, so which God gave him to show his servants or his slaves. We talk about that, which must soon take place. He made it known by sending his angel or his messenger to his slave John, who testified to the word of God and to the testimony of Jesus Christ, even to all that he saw. So he has these visions, all these visions, um, that he experiences, and that out of these visions he communicates.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
that's very very interesting. Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of the prophecy, and blessed are those who hear and keep what is written in it, for the time is near. Well, I mean, what time is near? I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
the I mean, he hopes that it's the end of Roman occupation. Um, it didn't quite work out like he had hoped. Rome didn't fall for maybe what 3, 4. Well, anyway,
Sometime later.
yeah, sometime,
Centuries later, yes.
yeah, sometimes later. But there's this longing, there's this yearning for liberation, for freedom. It's out of that the visions come. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. As I listen to you talk, the intersection between testimony and prophecy.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
What does that say about prophecy?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, of course, we didn't deal with the Old Testament prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, etc.
Hmm.
But when we were talking about doing the whole Bible, I was thinking about what is the relationship between prophecy uh, and testimony, and certainly you know the the Old Testament prophets base their prophecy, base what they have written on what they've experienced. I mean,
Hmm.
Isaiah 6, he has this experience, in the time that, King Uzziah died. I saw the Lord. So that, in in the midst of this community trauma, whatever is going on, that he sees God,
Hmm.
and so that he has this experience. I remember having a conversation with Alice Bellis, who still is, Old Testament prof at Howard Div, and asking, well, so to what extent was the are the prophetic books rooted in in their own experience? I mean, did they I mean, actually experience these things, experience these visions, or where they're just kind of sitting down at their desk and say, oh, here, let's bring in stuff from you know Ezekiel, or et cetera, of course. Anyway, and and Alice, rightfully so, said there's just no way to know.
Hmm.
um, but you know, so prophecy and testimony, prophecy and witness, and certainly with Revelation, witness has a dual meaning. I mean, the Greek word for testimony, or the Greek word for witness is is martus, or martyr.
Hmm.
When we speak about a martyr, um, someone who has died for a position, a um, yeah, someone who has died for a testimony. I mean,
Hmm.
when I was growing up, we had this paint. Well, it was yeah, this painting in our in our house, called American Martyrs. And it was a picture of those presidents who had died in office. I mean, I remember Kennedy, Lincoln, obviously, Garfield. Seemed like there was another who had been assassinated. Well, it doesn't matter, but these were martyrs. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
these were the American martyrs. Though, quite frankly, I'm not. Well, Lincoln was killed because of his participate. Well, participation is a little weak, but anyway, because of his role in the Civil War. Okay. I mean, Kennedy. Well, mm, people are talk about what what was going through Oswald's mind. If of course there's all kinds of conspiracy theories about
Hmm.
about that.
Hmm.
So, I mean, to what extent can these really be? Can these four presidents who were killed in office? I mean, to what extent were they martyrs?
Hmm.
In what sense did they have, a testimony that they were killed for?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I mean, we, can can I get a witness? There are a bunch of books and songs, etc. Can I get a witness? Indeed, we flirted with calling our book that.
Yes, but I get a witness. Hmm.
Can I get a witness? Or do you have a testimony? give testimony. I mean, we talk, both of us talk about our experiences in testimony meetings. That is that, so everybody had to have a testimony.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, testimony, a testimony of how the Lord has, spoken to them, touched them, blessed them, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and and the my testimony is that through this book, God touched me, or God spoke to me. And here I use that in a very general sense. I was not a stenographer for the Lord in terms of this book, and say, so what. I remember a friend, well, a humorist called Grady Nutt,
Mm-hmm.
and that was his that was his given name. And he was truly a nut. NUTT. And I say that with the greatest respect. I mean, he was not. I mean, he was funny. He was not
Mm-hmm.
mentally
Oh,
unbalanced
okay. Yes, yes.
at any way. But anyway, he would. I remember. Him kind of painting the scenario of of Paul just being blitzed out, with the Lord, and just writing, writing, writing this, and so someone comes into his jail cell and say, well, what are you doing, Paul? Well, I'm writing First Corinthians. And so,
Didn't happen like that, right?
right, and so the person says, well, great, what does it say? And Paul says, I don't know, I don't read Greek.
So this is an important, very important um, point to make about testimony, right? Human testimony. When we think about inspiration and testimony, right? That God does not, at least in my view, you may think about this differently, but God does not bypass the human, right? The testimony is as limited as our humanity. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. I was shown this particular saying. So in youth group, and perhaps you were too. That is, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. Well, no, I mean, one can ask questions about every one of those lines. That is, God said it. Well, how do you know? I mean, if someone say, if I would say, well, Mitzi said it, I'd say, well, how do you know? Well, I heard her. I mean, it was on. We were on the we were on this podcast thing together. So I mean, you don't believe me? Here, let's go to the videotape, or the audio tape or whatever. Well, God said it. Well, how do you know? God. God told me to go down to the grocery store and buy I don't know, whatever. Well, I mean, that's pretty well. It's pretty you know well, how do you know? Well, I mean, did you hear a voice? Well, most people will say no. I mean, uh, well, then how did you? I mean, how do you know? Here I have, Whitney Houston is kind of playing in the background here in my mind. How will I know if he really loves me? Uh, and well, I mean, that's certainly an interesting question. How will I know if, God really said to me, go down, to the grocery store or whatever? Of course, I mean, if I say, God led me, God said to me, go to the grocery store and buy a head of lettuce. Well, okay. I mean, I do that. I don't do that. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
real problem is when people say, "Well, God told me to do these kinds of violence, do these acts
Mm-hmm.
of violence."
Mm-hmm.
That's a real. that's a real problem.
Yeah, right. We have a lot of that. God said in the Bible, God said to take these people's land. God
Yeah,
said
yeah, 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 yeah,
to
yeah.
kill all the children and all the women. Right? God said, told me to tell a lie to deceive the enemy. Right?
Right,
I
right.
actually heard a colleague once, not at my present school. Maybe I shouldn't say colleague, but
Oh,
somewhere
that's right. Somewhere, yeah.
a colleague gave a devotional saying that God, um, that for Christians, we can lie to people on the outside, but we have to be honest with people on the inside, that is Christians, other Christians. And I was like, wow, okay. And this was a Bible scholar. But anyway, so
Well, off camera, you can give me the name and the email address.
oh, okay. I was spreading you to secret, right? So, yes, that's interesting. My mom, this is my mom's testimony. And we do, in this book, we start out
Right,
with the prologue, which is
right,
quite long, lengthy, talking about our different experiences. And mostly set not only, but set within the Black church experience, right? With testimony, our own personal testimonies, and some of them are quite vulnerable, right? When you read and we connected with how our testimonies, within our testimonies, we also talk about our journeys through reading scripture, right? And how
right,
we see
right.
God and so forth. But anyway, my mom, and I don't know if I put this in the book or not, but my mom said to me on a couple occasions that she heard God's voice just like I'm speaking to you.
Right,
Right. And
right,
I was, when she first told me that, I wasn't at any stage in my life where I was thinking more critically about these things. I never doubted that she heard a voice, and she identified this God. And one was when she was thought she was on her deathbed, right?
mhm,
And God said, she said she heard God say, "Get up and do such and such," and that kind of saved her life, right? Um, I've never had that experience, right?
no,
Other people have had, and it does make you think, right? Well, what's wrong with me? No, no. So I've gotten to the point where I don't question it, because there's this connection also between those experiences and faith, right? What we
absolutely,
believe can
absolutely.
happen and what we don't believe, or what we have experienced, right? And what we've been taught could happen, I guess.
Right,
And that's very difficult, right? Very difficult to parse. And sometimes we just have to let people have, or we should. I mean, it's not up to us to tell people that their experiences are true or not, for the most part,
right.
right? But they are our testimonies. They're very subjective, all of them, whether
Yeah.
they're in the Bible, whether they're human testimonies in the Bible, or our own. They're very subjective, right?
Yes, that's true. And I particularly experienced this when I was teaching um, at Howard, and before teaching at Howard, I taught in a number of colleges and seminaries. I'm hearing an echo here. Um, hmm.
The
Um,
important thing is I am not.
okay, so I think anyway, I see if I can get through this point, even though there's the distraction of the echo. That is that there was kind of a self-possession about the Bible and Jesus.
I am hearing the echo now. Do you have another? Is you have anything on? Okay, that's interesting.
No,
Okay.
no. So, okay, you're messing. Well, I think we called our epilogue. What is it? What have you done to my Bible? Something like
Yes. Yes.
that. Is there was a self-possession among some students. I would say a minority of students. That is that okay. You're messing with my Bible
Hmm.
and you're messing with my Jesus. Indeed, the dean emeritus at Howard Divinity, Lawrence Newton Jones, was quoted as saying that people come to divinity school and after their first class, they go to his office and say, "They've taken away my Jesus, and I don't know where they've laid him." And so, my wife and I were at some kind of banquet, and we, you know, Joy said that, you're quoted as saying, that, and he'd say, "I've heard I said that." I Yeah, I may have said that, but anyway, um, but that's, that there is, okay, my Jesus, my don't mess with my Jesus, don't mess with my Bible. And, well, I mean, it's my Bible too, and their Bible, and their Bible, and their Bible. I mean, it's kind of been around for a long time,
Mhm.
and so, and we're not messing with it, but we are, in some ways, we are playing with it,
Mhm.
just as, we play with others who are important to us. We play with people who we love, and so, I sometimes, well, sometimes I think that, there's the impression that we Bible scholars are, that we, are completely analytical, and that, we want to, destroy the faith of other people, that our faith has long been destroyed. And so we want to, we're on the lookout to destroy, other people's faith. But that's just not, um, that's not been my experience of biblical scholars. I guess I'm sure they're out there, but I just don't know a lot of them, um, and so, for me, biblical scholarship has just done so much to build my faith up.
Mm. Mm.
Um, I say in the book something like that. It is always biblical scholarship has always, led me to build people and their faith up. But occasionally, gently, well, sometimes not so gentle, but sometimes people's faith needs to be destroyed, particularly if they're using it to destroy other people. Uh,
Yes, yes.
and so undermine, that's what I say in the book. I talk about undermine, I certainly do not see my role is to undermine people's faith, but there are those rare instances in which that needs to happen. So,
Yes, yes. So as you talked about this saying that a lot of students and others has my Bible, but it's somebody else's, and already it was somebody else's Bible long before we got a hold of it, which brought to mind the whole notion, right, of often the Jesus we receive, right, from the church, from the pulpit, is already somebody else's construction. The
exactly.
Jesus, even in the Bible, when you talk about translation, when you talk about that it is somebody, whoever were the author, we don't know who the authors of the Gospels were, right?
Right.
We have an idea of their social class and their gender, but
Yeah.
they give us their testimony, which is already a construction, right? And so
Exactly.
to be willing to um, read critically, and so that we can come to our own conclusion, but not just through the Bible alone, which I think we are saying is, but because of our own testimonies, right? How have we experienced God, and how does that agree with or disagree with, right? What we find in the Bible. I'm not sure that we should be taking an ancient testimony and making it exactly our testimony, even if we do call it the Bible, right? because they are still human testimonies. And God still lives and is still helping human beings, or instrumental in, I think instrumental doesn't surpass the human element, but instrumental in helping us have new experiences in our context, new testimonies, and those testimonies change, right?
Oh, sure, sure,
Yes, I
sure.
mean the psalmist's testimony, who the person or the individual, the community who said, "I have never seen the righteous forsaken or their seed begging bread," right? That is not the testimony of many righteous and just people,
Right on.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so we have to, yeah. So we need to continually think critically, and I think as we continue to seek experiences with God, we I think we'll always see through this glass darkly, right? And to use Paul's
Right,
language,
right,
yes,
right.
I do agree with Paul on that point. But yeah, it's complex, right? Very complex.
Yeah,
We
it is.
like simple. I think we like simple. We teach simple, and
Yeah,
so people
yeah,
don't want us messing with simple.
yeah,
I think.
yeah, yeah. Keep it. Yeah. What the KISS method? KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Um,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so, yeah. That I mean, but it's it's simple and it's complex. I mean,
Mhm.
that's life.
Yes. Yes.
I was fired as a Southern Baptist missionary, and was on the charge of doctrinal ambiguity,
Mm.
which is, as I think about that now, and someone think about that then, is laughable because that's just life is ambiguous. That's that's just the way it is. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, um, yeah. I mean, I anyway. I mean, right now I have there. There's a friend of mine who is on life support. Well, actually, the tube has been removed.
Mm.
Um, and so I expected that he would have died. I mean, the tube was removed not this past Friday, but Friday before,
Mm.
and we expected that he would have died. I mean, that's I mean, and that is a matter of life and death, and
Mhm.
that is so when is Glenn going to die? And we heard in meeting yesterday to that he would he was not long for this world. Well, and that he may he was only going to last a day or so. Well, people have been saying. I mean, people have been saying that about this friend for the last week or so.
Mm.
I mean, so when is I mean, we really, I mean, to take it to the extreme, we really want, definite, you know, uh, answers.
Mm.
That is, I mean, what last week I fell at, at a local restaurant and blah blah blah, got my shin scraped up. I mean, it wasn't any big deal.
Mhm.
And so the next, I already had a physical exam scheduled the next day. And so, the doctor, looked at it and, he said, yeah, that's an abrasion and contusion. And I said, so will I die of it? And he said, no. Well, what will I die of? So he said, I'm sorry. I don't think I can tell you that. Well, and so I said, such incompetence. I mean, you can't tell me what I'm going to die of. You can't tell me when I'm going to die. And that's when there was a friend at the bookstore when I used to work in graduate school, and he would always we would always have these great discussions and you know all that kind of stuff, and he'd end by saying, "That's the way life is." And I think of that all the time. That's the way life is, and we want it to be different. We want it.
Mhm. Yes, yes, yes.
Different.
We want to make everything simplex. When somebody dies tragically, oh, it was their time. Oh my God, it was their time. So that makes it very simplex, right? So you don't have to deal with any injustices that may be surrounding the death or any other complexity, right? It was their time. Yes, very, 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 yeah. So, but yes, so it's interesting because we are people of faith, right? The whole idea of a resurrection is about faith,
Yeah.
right? It's based on faith. Yet we want to make it fact. Faith and fact
Oh yeah.
don't mix.
Yeah. Faith, fact, and feeling. That goes back to my youth for no Campus Crusade for Christ
Hmm.
days. They have a bunch of tracks. One is the Four Spiritual Laws. I think it's in there that they talked about fact, faith, and feeling.
Hmm.
And so I even remember this little caboose or this little train drawing that is that, okay, fact is the engine, faith is the coal car or whatever, or the passenger car, and then feeling is the caboose.
Yes.
And
And,
that,
and
I,
yeah, go ahead.
well, obviously that made an impression on me. I mean, I just read it. I mean, I mean, I mean, the last time I was there 50 years ago, that was the last time. So it obviously made an impression on me. But that's just, that's just BS.
Hmm.
That is biblical study or not or whatever. Because, I mean, fact, well, it's a fact that you and I are talking here. Well, okay. I mean, there are ways to verify that.
Hmm.
Uh, but then faith, well, I don't know. I believe that that's really you, Mitzi Smith, that I'm talking to. Well, again, and how do I feel about that? Well, I feel glad about that. Okay, that's, but, faith, fact is that Jesus rose from the dead.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, fact is that Paul writes that Jesus rose from the dead.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, and in faith, I mean, there's can certainly is a lot of and therefore because Jesus rose from the dead, I will rise. After I die, I will rise to heaven to go be with Jesus. Well, let's okay, let's talk about that kind of analogy and feeling. Well, I feel happy because I'm going to go and be with Jesus when I die. Well, okay, and I'm sad because my brother won't won't be with me because he doesn't believe in Jesus or
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. And so I mean, and so what's really interesting, what I really like to do is to just talk to people about their experiences, their testimony. I'm remembering when I was in Suffield, Connecticut. I would have my my daily constitutions there in the Constitution State, um, and I remember talking with someone. He had grown up in the church that I was serving as interim pastor, but he had gotten sick and people told him that, well, if you believe, then that you'll be cured. And well, it didn't quite work that way for him.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, although I saw him walking, he was walking with great pain.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, so and I felt sad. I felt sad that he got that message, even
Hmm.
indeed angry
Hmm.
um, about that. Um, and he said, I'm an atheist now, and he was pretty confirmed atheist there.
Hmm.
Um, and I felt sad. I felt sad because he was in a lot of emotional and physical pain.
Hmm. Yes, yes,
Uh,
yes, yes. Yeah, so often we want to make our faith fact, and then that and I'm not talking about faith as in religion. Certainly, religion and science, they don't have to be at odds, right?
Right.
But the kind of faith with, we're talking about faith in what's the Hebrew 11 1 definition of faith, the belief in things unseen, not experienced, right?
That's right. That's
Yes,
right.
they have not happened. They cannot be verified, right? That kind of faith.
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then we want to make it, if our faith happens to result in a reality, right? I believe the doctor told me I'm going to die of cancer, but I believe my faith tells me I won't. And so perhaps I don't. But then we want to hold everybody else to make it fact, right? And say, well, you don't have enough faith. That's why you didn't. That's why something's wrong with your life, and that's why, right? So we have to be very careful. Yes, very careful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
perhaps that,
Yeah.
yes.
Right. Right.
Embrace your own. If you want to embrace your own faith, we don't use it as a clobbering stick for other folks, right? And make it equate to fact, right? Your faith with fact, yes. Well,
Right.
thank you so much, Dr. Newhart. We're winding down. You want to share a poem from the book, or a separate poem?
Yeah. From the
In
from the
closing.
book.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me read it. This is the poem that concludes the prologue. And for example, I say, since this is disruptive and creative interpretation, I, Newhart, have added this poem to our first chapter. Let me just. We are all witnesses. We are all witnesses. All. Yes, all. All, every one of us. Witnesses, wits, and I'm only half right. Witnesses, Acts 1:8. You will be my witnesses. Jerusalem, Judea. You will be my witnesses. Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, Galilee, and the uttermost parts. The uttermost parts. Moo of the earth, which is dearth of mirth and spurth and lurth, and I'm just making up words here. We are all witnesses, all. Witnesses to the peace, the joy, the love, the word. Yes, we are all martyrs to the cause of life. We're dying, shot by active, not passive or even middle voice shooters. I am a rooter, or no. I am not a rooter of a shooter. I would rather ride my scooter. All witnesses, all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Newhart, and for your creativity. And I pray that our book will inspire our readers to use or find their own creativity. Thank you so much.
Right,
We
right.
have to have another conversation
That's
at,
right.
at some
That's
point.
right.
Yeah, we planned this for half an hour, but it was an hour conversation. So
Oh well.
yeah.
That's the part about ambiguity of life.
Yes. Goodbye, Dr. Newhart. And you will see this episode airing in October, on October 7th.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So okay, great.